Hi, this is Lane 8492. This is the only true crime story video I'll be doing today. This is out of the case here in the state of Florida. This would be a Florida death row inmate, Victor Tony Jones. You see, Victor Tony Jones was convicted and sentenced to death for the double murder stabbings of 67-year-old Jacob Nestor and his wife, 66-year-old Mathilda Nestor, in Miami, Florida. Apparently, 2 days prior to this, Jacob and Mathilda Nestor had hired Victor Tony Jones to work in their business. And just 2 days after he got hired, he decided to rob them. And there he would first fatally stab Mathilda Nestor. And then he would end up stabbing Jacob Nestor after Jacob Nestor had apparently opened fire with his revolver that hit Victor Tony Jones in the forehead. But apparently Victor Tony Jones had survived being shot in the forehead by Jacob Nestor. But being that he was the one who did it and he had decided to rob them for financial gain, he became the number one suspect in the crime. Which happened in 1990, as I said, in Miami-Dade County, Florida. And he was tried, convicted, and sentenced to death for the crime in 1991, which means he's been on death row for 34 years at the Union Correctional Institution in Rayford, Florida, which is where they hold all the men on death row, which is in Bradford County, Florida, and the Florida State Prison in Stark, Florida, is a mile away, also in Bradford County, Florida, where the rubber meets the road for those on death row in Florida. But if his sentence is carried out, this will be the 13th execution carried out this year in Florida. Because on September 17th, Florida is scheduled to carry out the execution of David Joseph Pittman, who I previously did a true crime story video on. And after Jones is executed, this will be the 13th death sentence carried out this year. Of course, we all know that Texas still leads the nation in carrying out death sentences ever since the death penalty was reinstated in 1976. However, this year, Florida is leading the way in carrying out death sentences because Texas has only carried out 4, and 2 more are scheduled this year. One in September of Blaine Keith Milam, who I did a true crime video on, and one in October of Robert Leslie Robertson III. But these are the 11 prisoners executed this year so far in Florida: James Dennis Ford, Edward Thomas James, Michael Anthony Tansey, Jeffrey Glenn Hutchinson, Glenn Edward Rogers, Anthony Floyd Wainwright, Thomas Lee Godinez, Michael Bernard Bell, Edward John Zacharzewski II, Cale Barrington Bates, and Curtis Lee Wyndham. Now, after the execution of Victor Tony Jones, Florida will have executed 119 prisoners since they brought back capital punishment. And of all the 67 counties, of those who have been sentenced to death and executed in Florida, only 3 counties have consisted of the majority of those sentenced to death and executed in Florida. Those counties are Duval County, that's where you have Jacksonville, Orange County, where you have Orlando, and Miami-Dade County. So Miami-Dade County leads in the majority in Florida. And from what I read, it doesn't look like it shows any sign of letting up where death warrants will be signed setting the execution. Of course, in Florida, it's the governor who signs the warrant of execution. Each state have different protocols on how they set execution dates. Usually it's requested through a state Supreme Court or a criminal court of appeals. It's like in Texas, The Texas Supreme Court doesn't handle criminal matters, it handles civil matters. Same in Oklahoma. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and let me know what you think. Thanks.